Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Tarkington Theater for the very first That's What She Said, Indianapolis. Please welcome to the stage, She Said regional producer and your host for tonight's event, Ms. Katie Vigil.
Good evening, everyone. This is beyond amazing. I almost can't believe this is happening. You all are here. Thank you so much for coming to the first ever That's What She Said, Indianapolis. I first had the idea of bringing this show here about 3 years ago. I'm originally from Central Illinois, born and raised in wonderful Champaign-Urbana, woo-woo, where That's What She Said began in 2013. I had seen the show and had heard local women share their stories with such authenticity and vulnerability. It was so powerful. So when my family moved to the Indianapolis area in 2019, that idea really started to brew. My mind is a plethora of ideas. Ideas as bright as the morning sun that fade faster than a strike of lightning. I am a woman of a million great ideas. In fact, if I were paid $1 for every great idea I had, I'd probably be a millionaire. I've always been a lifelong dreamer full of potential. Unfortunately, dreams and potential don't get the bills paid. Turning my bright ideas into reality, however, can sometimes be frustrating. Thankfully, with a really amazing team, Kevin and Jenette, we decided the time was right to launch the show. So I added the title of producer to my long list of goals. What I wasn't sure about, however, was also taking the stage to share my own personal story. Not even a year ago, the likelihood that I'd be standing on this stage would have been less likely than my 15-year-old daughter getting Taylor Swift tickets at face value. Vulnerability has never really been my thing, and public speaking, well, let's just say that I'd rather watch the Indy 500 on the hottest Memorial Day weekend on record than stand up and speak in front of hundreds of people. So the thought of sharing personal, intimate details of my hot mess of a life was definitely not something that I had on my bucket list of 10,000 things to do before I die. But here I am, standing on this stage tonight, hosting, producing, and actually finishing one of the most greatest things that I've ever started in my life. It was only when I decided to be great and realized that I was worthy of greatness, did greatness start showing up. Tonight, I will share pieces of my journey that has brought me to where I am today. You're also going to hear 9 other inspiring stories from the phenomenal women you're about to meet. We share our stories tonight for our daughters, our mothers, sisters, and every other woman out there just like us. Ordinary women who have found the courage and the strength to overcome the challenges that life has thrown our way. Because without struggles, there can be no victory. So please join me in welcoming to the stage your 2023 That's What She Said Indianapolis speakers.
July 30th, 2016. Conversation on the way home tonight. Mom, I was telling Jonathan the other day about how I fell in the lake up to my chin and... Me, what? Wait. Mom, the other day when I fell in the lake. Me. Were you trying to rake the muck out like I specifically told you not to do because you would fall in the lake? Mom. Oh yeah, I forgot I wasn't going to tell you this story. I guess it won't be my boys after all. Hashtag death of me. June 13th, 2019. Show of hands. Who else had to yell for their mom to come inside at 10:15 p.m.? Oh yeah, after you locked the door and turned off the lights, not knowing that she used the side door. Anyone? Bueller? 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 I'm starting my book. The working title is Adventures in Alzheimer's Sitting. Subtitle, My Ultimate Demise. March 4th, 2019. Where do I get my stubbornness? Glad you asked. Mom and I are driving past the cemetery where my dad is buried. Mom, do you already have a burial plot? Me, no, I don't need one. I told everyone, take what you can use and burn the rest. Have a big party with a lot of laughs and great music. Mom, you can't do that. You have to have a funeral and a showing. Me, no I don't, and I don't want that. Nothing in a funeral home. It's too much money. Just a cremation and a party. That's it. Mom, well, I don't like that. You have a funeral. Me, no, Mom, I really don't want one. Mom, you're having one. I will just outlive you so that I can make sure. Hashtag Adventures in Alzheimer's Sitting. These are just a few of the examples of my Facebook posts that I shared while living with my mother during the early stages of Alzheimer's. Growing up, I always heard, since you're the only girl and the baby, you will be taking care of Mom and Dad. Mom confirmed this, as she always said it too, that I would be the one taking care of her. So I bought into it. The care of my parents would be on me. I bought my grandmother's house next to their house so I would be available. My father passed away 14 years ago, and my mother lived on her own until breaking her hip and being diagnosed with the early stages of Alzheimer's in early 2016. My boys, ages 16 and 12, and I moved in with her in my childhood home so that I could be the caregiver. The adventure started off with a bang, never to slow down. The main bathroom in the house is across the hallway from my mother's bedroom. My oldest, Tyler, 16, my ex-husband, and I were in the living room while my mom took a long, hot shower. Tyler was patiently waiting for her to be done so that he could use the restroom. As Mom finished the shower, she yelled out of the bathroom door, "Okay, I'm done." Tyler waited about 60 seconds and then headed through the kitchen to round the hallway corner to the bathroom. Almost as soon as he disappeared, he reappeared and came back to the living room. As he entered, he said, "It is so hot in the bathroom, and Grandma's naked." Through my laughter, I asked for clarification because feeling that he truly buried the lead on that one. I walked back to my mom's room where she sat on her bed, only wearing a Depends. I asked her to please not walk through the house naked now that we live with her and there are boys in the house. She said, "Well, I covered the important parts." I said, "Mom, you can't do that. It's still scarring for a child to see their grandparent naked." Mom turned to me, very serious, and said, "Well, tell Tyler they're perkier when they're younger." As I laughed, I was instantly transported back to when I was 5 years old, standing beside my mother as she reclined in the tub with a washcloth over her chest. I asked her what she was doing, and she said, "Covering my nummies." I wasn't sure I heard her correctly and asked her to repeat it. "Nummies, the things between your neck and your tummy are your nummies?" So there you have it. family tradition, the need for therapy around body parts. Thus began the adventures in living with my mom. In fact, I began posting the daily grind on Facebook with the hashtag of AdventuresinAlzheimersSitting. When we moved in with my mom, our lives changed. Mom had always loved the outdoors, and that did not change. I was constantly having to survey our wooded property to see if I could find her. Then the game hashtag Where's Mom was born. My go-to in stressful situations is humor. I must find that humor in a situation in order to fight my way through it. And, of course, because of this, I think I'm hilarious. I began posting our adventures on Facebook so that my friends could enjoy, and also in hopes that I would not be the only one laughing at my life. There were photos of her barely visible in the wooded areas, photos taken at dusk with her blending into the darkness, photos where she was on her knees getting the weeds out of our perfectly fine crabgrass. My friends began to play along. It brought me great joy. They began looking forward to the posts, even asking, "Where's your mom at today?" on the days that I didn't post. It made my heart happy. I didn't sugarcoat my posts much. I posted when she ticked me off by trying to get the weeds out of our ravine. I posted when she argued with me about pulling up carpet so she could clean underneath of it. It was daily life. She was becoming like a toddler. And then one day, my brother called me. He asked me to please stop posting about Mom and her antics because it was upsetting the grandkids. I didn't know how to react at first. These posts aren't meant to be upsetting. They are my life. They are meant to be funny and a lighthearted view of the adventure. I was upset. Out of respect to my brother's wishes, I stopped posting while I mulled over what I did wrong. Mom still continued her antics, but I no longer had my outlet. After about a week of contemplation, I came to the realization that I need to post these things. It was my outlet. So at first, I just blocked all family from being able to see the posts. If they were getting upset, I would just not let them see them. As time went on, I began to find my grounding, my center again. I decided to remove the block. I needed to have the freedom to share my story without the fear of someone finding out about it on accident. I needed to post my situations without worrying. I'm sorry if they got upset about something, but I can't control that. I needed to do what I felt helped me deal with the situation and release some of the pressure. So I continued my hashtag Where's Mom and hashtag AdventuresinAlzheimersSitting posts. My friends still loved the stories and commented often. And then more wonderful things began to happen. One friend from high school reached out to me because she saw these amazing gardening gloves in an ad. They had little claw-like fingers to help with digging in the flower bed. She said, "I saw these and I thought of your mom. Would she like them? I would love to get them for her." Of course she would. Josie drove them over the day they arrived in the mail. She presented them to my mom, a woman she had never met, and made my mom so happy she beamed. She hugged Josie tight and thanked her over and over again. Another friend messaged me on Facebook a little while later. He and I went to high school together, but maybe talked a total of 10 times in 4 years. He said, "Does your mom have a place for a garden? If you have an area for her, I can bring my tiller up and till her a good garden area." I haven't spoken to him in person since high school. He also had never met my mom, yet he was willing to drive 30 minutes to our house just to till a garden for a woman he had never met, just to make her life a little more enjoyable. This is what it was about to me. Support from my community, more people to love my mom. How could that be a bad thing? So if I do write that book someday, I would hope that there are a couple of takeaways. Number one would be that even when faced with adversity, you can find a way to survive. It doesn't have to be the standard path. No one gets to dictate how you deal with your struggles. Do what you need to do, how you need to do it. I found my coping mechanism in humor. That may not be yours, but that's okay. Do what you need to do. My second takeaway, and possibly the most important one, is to always remember, nummies are perkier when you're younger.
I was 17 years old, and like many high school seniors, I was getting ready for prom, graduation, and college. I wanted to be grown, but didn't want any grown folks' responsibilities. Then one day, the course of my life would change with one minuscule decision: at the food court. On this Saturday in April, I was at the mall shopping with my prom date for his tuxedo. And being a teenager in the 2000s, there was only one place I wanted to eat when I went to the mall: Panda Express. If you're Team Sbarro, don't talk to me. I'm looking at you, Cara. I was a month away from graduation, which meant I needed to elevate my palate. I could no longer just eat orange chicken. No, that's too basic. I needed something new, something exotic, like Kung Pao chicken. Now, a few bites in, and my mouth starts to tingle, and I don't think much of it, because usually when that happens, I just drink some water and everything's okay. So that's what I did. I boxed up my leftovers, and we continued to walk around the mall. Then I began to overheat and fill off. I tried to drink some more water and power through, but that lasts maybe 5 minutes before I knew I needed to get out of there. At this time, I was a proper suburbanite, so I lived roughly 10 minutes away from the mall, no highway required. So I felt comfortable driving home, until I got to that first stoplight. At this point, I'm leaned over my center console because I know something is gonna happen, I'm just not sure from where. I called my mom and I let her know I think I'm having an allergic reaction to something, but I'm not sure. I tend to be a very unserious person when it comes to my allergies. I grew up in like a seasonal allergy days. I'm almost home, and as I'm turning into my neighborhood, I just start to projectile vomit in my car. Luckily, my 2000 Buick Regal had leather seats, and my mother loves me dearly. As I pull into the driveway, she's there waiting for me. I get out of the car, arms outstretched, bawling my eyes out, covered in Panda. She gets me cleaned up, cleans my car and my clothes, gives me Benadryl, and puts me to bed. When I awake hours later, my brother's delightfully eating my leftovers, and that's when we notice the peanuts. We collectively assumed that's what I was allergic to, and that was it. I didn't go to the hospital. There were no allergist visits. I didn't get an EpiPen. I started keeping Benadryl in my car, and I would double check at new restaurants to see if a dish had peanuts. But I continued my life as I did before. My prom mate did call to check on me, and my mom told her family via the family phone tree. Now, up until this day, I can't remember a time where I had eaten a dish containing peanuts. I knew PB&Js had no appeal to me, and if you ate a Reese's cup, you'd have to stand an arm's length back from me because I couldn't stand the smell, but I thought that was just a general dislike for the food. The impact of that day had on my life, I wouldn't realize until years later. I was 26, roughly 4 years out of college, and still unsure what I wanted to do with my life. I was living in a cool part of Indianapolis with my friends, working at cool bars and restaurants, going out, going on vacation, just generally enjoying my 20s, until I wasn't anymore. I got restless, and I needed to pivot. I started looking into a career path that I had been exploring since I started college, the military. Now, this was not a spur of the moment decision, and after months preparing, I joined the United States Navy. A part of joining the military is going through the Military Entrance Processing Station, or MEPS. You report all of your information to MEPS: education, medical, legal, familial, everything. So when I got to the question on my paperwork, "Do you have any allergies?" I said yes, nickel, shellfish, and peanuts. I never listed my seasonal allergies because, again, not being able to breathe is just my state of being. One of the recruiters said these allergies might pose a problem, but we'll send it off to MEPS and see what they say. They said nothing. I pass all the other procedures and tests at MEPS. I select my desired job, and I get my date for boot camp. I was in an accelerated group, so boot camp was only going to be roughly 8 weeks. Now, they do a lot of medical procedures on you the first few weeks of boot camp. They check your eyes, they check your teeth, they check your blood to see how allergic you are to that food you ate in the mall 9 years ago. And the results of that test were off the charts. Apparently, I am very allergic to peanuts. I was a 4+ on the stick post test. The allergists couldn't believe I didn't drop dead right there in the Glenbrook Square food court. At the moment, I was thinking, okay, no big deal. I'll just continue to not eat peanuts. Fun fact, I'm also a 4+ allergic to horses, cats, dogs, and the general outdoors, but not shellfish, even though I broke out in hives at Red Lobster at like 11. No. Now the Navy, however, they thought those test results were a big deal. Their fear was a sailor whose test shows such a severe allergy will be on a ship, have an allergic reaction, and not reach medical attention in time. A valid fear that I countered with, "It's fine." So I was medically discharged from boot camp. Roughly week 6, day 4, about 10 days before graduation. When you're discharged from Navy boot camp, you don't go home right away. You go through a separations process that can take a minimum of a week. My process took 3 weeks. So I was there longer than if I would have graduated. The whole time, I like to note, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, everyone around me eating PB&J sandwiches. That's when the course of my life changed. I got home right before Christmas, lost. I had signed a 6-year contract. I was ready to start a career, ready to start a new chapter in my life. And now I was back where I was roughly 2 months before, but without a job or a plan. And I didn't have a plan for a while. I went back to serving and bartending, but I was enjoying it less and less. I lived in a less cool part of Indianapolis. I wasn't growing, I wasn't learning, I was just here. That big pivot in my life turned out to be unfruitful, so it was time for another. So I moved across the country to El Paso, Texas with my boyfriend of less than 2 years. He was in the Army National Guard, and since I couldn't go active duty, he might as well. Now, that was a dramatic pivot, but it was the catalyst I needed to keep going. The 3 years in El Paso, we got married, I explored multiple careers, I got a paralegal certificate, I shaved my head for the first time, pull it off. I have found my way to the junior league via volunteer work in the city. I realized I love nonprofit work, so I started looking into grad school. It turns out Indiana University has the top nonprofit management program in the country, and I got accepted. I'll be completing that master's degree in December and my second one in 2024. And if you ask me right now, Brandi, what do you want to do when you grow up? The answer is not set in stone, and I can't say it here because I'll jinx future Brandi. But no, I have a vision of my future, and I couldn't even imagine that first Christmas home. It may involve me pivoting a few more times, which is not always fun, fruitful, or easy, but there's power in those possibilities, and that's what a pivot truly is.
It's 1984, the year of Apple's first commercial, Ghostbusters, Gremlins, Never-Ending Story, 16 Candles, Madonna, Boy George, big hair, and hair bands. I am in first grade. It's January, and it's freezing cold. I know I'm a baby. It's the first recess of the day, and I'm standing outside on the playground in front of the basketball goals with my friends. I am wearing a new winter coat. It's blue and pink with matching gloves I had just got for Christmas. I loved this coat, and I absolutely felt adorable wearing it. To be honest here, I felt like I was hot stuff. Also, outside during recess was a girl in third grade. She's blonde, blue-eyed, tall, very thin. this blonde little girl comes up to me and starts yelling at the top of her lungs, "Pudding pop!" Looking at her confused, calling me pudding pop. Some kids started to laugh, and it hurt deeply. Yes, I was chunky and even overweight. This behavior of hers continued until she graduated from our grade school in 8th grade. Every time she would see me down a hall, she would call and yell out, "Pudding pop." I tell you this story because for a while, I think it defined who I saw myself as when I was a little girl. I remember it holding me back from trying and doing new things. It destroyed my confidence. It made me want to prove to everybody that I was just like them, that I was good enough, and I wasn't different, or there was nothing wrong with me. At times, my family caught grief because I was overweight. Why can't Becca lose weight? What are you feeding her? Is she not exercising? What are you doing? I felt guilty that my parents had to go through some of that. I felt ashamed of who I was. And today, that still hurts. In grade school, I did my very best to be a great volleyball player. I tried basketball my 6th grade year. Okay, let me tell you, I am not a basketball player. I may have been the tallest girl in the school, but dribbling and running at the same time, not my forte. You can ask my siblings. In 2nd grade, I started going to Weight Watchers with my mom in 1985, and we did that together until 8th grade off and on. I remember playing outside at home, running around until dark, riding my bike, hitting volleyballs against the house, and doing whatever I could to be a skinny girl. Because I was overweight, I had to develop grit. I had to show courage by developing elephant-tough skin. I had to stop caring what other people thought of me, because otherwise I would have gone into some dark places in my mind. I had to do my dead level best in everything and to overcompensate just to make for the fact that I was overweight. I felt like everybody judged me. Now, if that does not develop a strength of character and grit, I don't know what else would. I had to learn how to find joy and happiness through it all. Okay. Because of all of that grit I developed, it served me well my 7th grade year. I had one of the most embarrassing events, I can't believe I'm telling you all this, that ever happened to me in my life. I was in English class, and I started my period. I know, here we go. All right, I was wearing red sweatpants, thank God, or so I thought. And of course, I was sitting in the one chair without the built-in basket underneath the seat that held our extra books. So now everybody could remember what chair was the tainted chair. Can we all agree that middle school sucks sometimes? Thank you, yes. Well, when I got out of that chair to go to the bathroom, I didn't look back at my seat. My focus was getting to the bathroom as quickly as I possibly could. But the boys sitting next to me, they looked at the chair. Guess what? Yep, there was a little blood. I did end up cleaning that chair, but dang it, those boys teased me all through middle school, and they weren't even in my class. They were in the year younger. Talk about embarrassing. Okay, at the end of my 8th grade year, I had a very tough and unique decision to make: to go to high school at home and strengthen up my grit and my confidence, or I was given an opportunity to attend a co-ed Lutheran boarding high school 8 hours away from home. At first, no way was I going. But then I had an epiphany. It was seriously a eureka moment and a decision that threw my mom into a tailspin at first. We had to shop for everything in less than 2 weeks before school started. It was a quick decision. I never saw it running as running away, but a way of growing being even more independent, like I needed help, and heck yeah, a co-ed Christian campus 8 hours away from home, living in a dorm at 14 years old. Let's do this. St. Paul's, here I come. I had an amazing roommate while at St. Paul's. Together, Jill and I grew up, learned how to communicate, learned how not to ruin our clothes in the wash, learned how to ask for forgiveness, how to laugh, how to give grace to others, and mentally grow up much quicker than most high school students. Here I learned grace and how to forgive. One day this summer, I was reading this devotional, and I read something about grace. So hang in here with me, y'all. I promise there's a point as I sound like a scholar, okay? So Paul writes about grace in the New Testament in Philippians. He uses the word joy 16 times. The interesting thing is that Paul is writing this from jail. He's also been beaten, whipped, stoned nearly to death, shipwrecked, starved, and persecuted. Well, if you look at it from that context, how in the world can he be writing about joy 16 times and during all of this? It's astonishing. The devotional mentions that unlike happiness, joy isn't based on circumstances. Joy doesn't come from within you. Joy doesn't come from what you do. It doesn't come from finding yourself or accepting yourself or focusing on yourself. Joy doesn't come from what makes you happy, following your bliss, or even living your best life. Paul keeps talking about rejoicing in the Lord, and if you look at the Greek word rejoice, we translate it as cherit. The root found within that word is charis, which is the word we translate as grace. Grace means undeserved favor, kindness, and a gift of God. You guys, the root of joy is grace. Yeah. Man, that hit me in the face hard this summer. Grace is what I learned at St. Paul's. Because of that, I have been able to find joy every day and learned how to give myself grace, even the days that are gray and gloomy, just like Paul. I'm constantly learning about grace, how to soften the edge of some of my grittiness. Now, I'm not saying that my childhood was horrible or anything, but I had a challenge that made me a little gritty. I was loved, and I was loved fiercely by my parents and family. With all of my life experiences about learning grit and grace, it's something that I love to call my gritty grace. My definition of gritty grace and how I choose to live my life is to have courage when I'm faced with something scary, to be resolved in my beliefs and values, to have strength of character and know exactly who I am as a child of God. That I am enough, that I don't have to be living out somebody else's plans for me or live out somebody else's dreams. Also, I know the importance of being kind and gracious and giving gratitude to everyone, even when it's hard, to give forgiveness and be humble enough to know humility. I have learned that when life hands me lemons, I know how to make the most amazing lemonade. As a business coach, I love teaching people how to make amazing lemonade as well. I love helping others overcome their limiting beliefs, helping them to hit goals, go after dream jobs, create a vision and a life they love, help them live into their passions, create better relationships with their families and clients and coworkers, help rebuild their confidence, and live a life they love. Plus, help them to never, ever give up, develop grit and grace when they need it. With my own coach, I have worked on overcoming my limiting beliefs and created a belief statement that helps me own my gritty grace. And I say this out loud to myself every single day. And it goes like this: I am enough. God has made me the way I need to be to accomplish his work through me. I don't want to feel like I didn't give it my all. I'm excited to serve the world, but most importantly, to feel present in the moment, feel that I gave it my best, and that I'm here to serve others. I have done tough things that most people never ever could. I'm living out gritty grace. I'm on fire, and I am amazing, just as God has made me. Hell yeah!
I was 10 years old when I realized that there were only two kinds of girls. Girls who were good in gym and girls who were good in school. So I was in 5th grade, and we had just come back from gym, and I don't have any memory of what we did, but I can promise you it didn't go well for me. And I was sitting back in my classroom, feeling bad and feeling sorry for myself. And then I had a little epiphany too. There are two kinds of girls. Girls who are good in gym, and I should explain, it was the late 60s, and I watched a lot of television. So, girls who are good in gym. They're thin, they're pretty, they're probably blonde, and boys pay a lot of attention to them, so they are going to grow up and get married and have families. Now, I wasn't good at gym, but there's that other kind of girl, the girls who are good in school. And they don't have to be thin or pretty, and they're probably not blonde, but they are smart, and they could go to college and have fabulous careers and make a ton of money. I'm like, yeah, I could do that. So I literally made up my mind that day. You are going to be a girl who is good in school. And except for math, I already got pretty good grades. But I thought, no, you have to get really good grades. You are going to have a great career and make a ton of money. And that'll make up for all the rest of it. And at 10 years old, it actually did become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Fast forward to when I was 30. I was still single. I had no prospects. But I did own a video production company, and I had a nice office, and I had staff, and I had a ton of very expensive equipment and a nice roster of political clients and corporate clients. And a lot of money ran through that business. Almost enough money to run it. I didn't know how to run a business, and most months I could not take enough money out to pay my own bills. Now, by my mid-30s, I was really sick of it. I really was. I was sick of my business. I was sick of my 18-hour days. I was sick of coming home to an empty house, and maybe there wouldn't be all the utilities turned on. And I was also sick of dating, gotta be honest. In Lafayette, Indiana, at that time, let's just say that the pool of professional eligible bachelors was a little thin. But you know, when you met another professional woman, you'd find you had a lot in common, because you dated all the same guys. I'm not kidding. You say, you dated him, I dated him, you dated him too? Yeah, well, okay. So, in my around 35 or so, I had another flash of insight. I finally realized what I really needed, what I needed to be happy and fulfilled. I needed a baby. Yeah, that's what I need, a baby. Perfect. I have no money. I don't know what I'm doing. I gotta have a baby. But how do you pull that off when you don't even want to date anybody? Well, I opened up the Lafayette Journal and Courier one morning, and there's a story about a sperm bank that's going to open up in West Lafayette. And it got better. They named my family doctor as the guy who was going to do the checkups on the men to make sure they were healthy. I know. So I called his office, and he got on the phone with me, and I explained why I was calling. And he said, well, slow down. I'm doing the checkups on the men, but the insemination has to be done by a gynecologist. Well, okay, that's fine. Well, but then he said, you know, I have an idea. Here's what we're going to do. When you register with the sperm bank, they're going to give you a list, no names, just code numbers. But you're going to come over to the office here, and I'm going to have another list for you, and there's going to be a couple stars by a couple of the codes, and you're going to want to pick one of those. And I thought, whoa. Insider trading at the sperm bank, right? I mean, it doesn't get any better than that, does it? So, it was around Halloween, and I went home to visit my parents up near Chicago, and I told them my plan, that I'm going to become a single mother through artificial insemination. And my mother said, oh, that sounds nice. So I went home. I made an appointment with a gynecologist. You had to go talk to him first, they said, and then schedule the insemination. So I'm waiting in the waiting room, and I'm waiting, and somebody taps me on the shoulder. I'm like, what? It's a nurse, and she beckons me this way, and we go over behind a potted plant. I'm not kidding, a potted plant. And I know what you're wondering, Myra, do good things happen behind a potted plant at the gynecologist's office? No, they do not. And sure enough, she said to me, I just looked to see why you were here. And I wanted to tell you, Doc's gonna say no. I'm like, no? He's gonna say no? And she said, yeah, he's a Christian and he will not inseminate single women. Well, when I calmed down, I thought, you know, I don't really have the right to ask a person with firm moral beliefs to do away with those beliefs for me. I don't have that right. And I also realized I wasn't prepared to spend the next 20 plus years trying to convince people that I hadn't just gotten knocked up. So I talked to friends, you know, what other options were there? And somebody said, you know, there's a couple in Lafayette who adopted 2 little girls from Haiti. You should meet them. I thought, yeah. So I got kind of an introduction, and they invited me to come to dinner and meet the girls, who were adorable. And they told me how easy it was to adopt from Haiti. You could practically come back on the airplane with a baby in your carry-on bag. It was so simple. And I thought, wow. Instant gratification. It doesn't get any better than that, does it? So I went home to visit my parents. Now it's Thanksgiving. And I said, got a new plan. I'm going to become the single mother of a Haitian baby. And my dad said, oh, that sounds nice. Like, okay. So I went home. But I started doing a little bit of reading about what was going on in Haiti, and it was really the politics, the social, everything was breaking down. And there was a possibility that you could end up adopting a baby that had been kidnapped from a family that wanted that baby. And I thought, I can't do that. So I went over to the Tippecanoe County Welfare Department, because they do the county adoptions. And they said, well, you know, you're 35 and you're not married, but if you have patience, we might eventually be able to offer you a handicapped baby or an older child who's been taken out of a troubled home. I thought, okay, sure. I filled out the paperwork. And I went home and I talked to my parents. Now it was Hanukkah, Christmas time. And I said, okay, new plan. I am going to eventually become the single mother of a physically and or emotionally handicapped child. And my parents said, "Oh, that sounds nice." And I was thinking, are you even listening to me now? But I went home to wait, okay? And then my brother and my sister-in-law called me and asked me if I would come up to Wisconsin and watch their 2 little daughters for a week while they went on a cruise. They were 2 and 5. And I said, sure. And I tell you, Caitlin and Nicole and I had the best time. Every day we went to the pool and the park and the playground, and then we go to Dairy Queen, because that's the only way to get the girls out of the pool or the park or the playground. Say, if you come with me, we'll go to Dairy Queen. And by the end of the week, I'd gained 5 pounds, and I was exhausted. But I wanted a baby right now, because that was so much fun. I have to have a baby now. So I'm driving home through Milwaukee, back to Indiana, and I'm looking on the radio for something to listen to. And here comes the music from All Things Considered on National Public Radio. And they were just in the middle of an interview about international adoption in China. And I guess I didn't even know about this, but they'd had an international adoption program. They did away with it, and now they were reopening it. And they only had 2 requirements for parents that they cared about. You had to be over 35 and have no other kids. And it was like a sign. I thought, wow. Because everything that was wrong with me to do a domestic adoption was okay with them. So I went home, and I was very excited about it. And I swear to you, this is true. I opened up the Journal and Courier the next morning, and there's a story about a local woman whose daughter had adopted a little girl from China. And I thought, okay, I get it. You don't have to hit me with this big stick. I get it. All right. Now, I did not go home to check that plan out with my parents. I decided to listen to my heart. I tried to listen to my brain first, but my brain said, you know, you like Chinese food. I'm like, never mind. I listened to my heart, and my heart said, oh, that sounds nice. And less than a year later, I came home with my baby daughter, Samantha, who I named her that just so I could call her Sammy. And it sounds like the end of my motherhood story, but it's sort of only the beginning. There came a day, not too long after that, maybe a year, she was just starting to say English words, and she liked to point at things, and I would tell her what those things were. And we were flipping through a magazine. She would point, and I would say the word. I flipped open a page, and she pointed to a really gorgeous male underwear model. And before I could think, what do I call that? She said, Daddy. And I thought, wait a minute. How do you even know that word? You don't have one. And then I thought, oh, okay. I get it. Well, the story of how I met David and how we got married is a little long. You can see me after the show, and I'll tell you that part. It's pretty funny, too, actually. Suffice it to say that we've been married for 25 years. Yeah. And along the way, we adopted a little boy from Vietnam who was a year old at the time. When I talk to parents about parenting, I like to say that Sammy was sent into my life to teach me that I could redefine myself. I didn't have to be just a crappy businesswoman. I could be a really good mom. And just about the time I started believing that, the universe sent Mikey to show me that I didn't know jack about that either. Mikey was sent to humble me, and he has. But Sammy and Mikey and David are the lights of my life. Thank you. And now I also have a 3-year-old grandson and a son-in-law. And Mikey has a girlfriend that I really like. No pressure, but I really like her. And you know what that means, right? Bonus kids. It doesn't get any better than that. Thank you.
Know how I can top that. How is everybody doing tonight? We can't see you, we gotta hear you. You guys good? Everybody good? All right. All right. Well, I am Lisa, and in case you can't tell, I am not from these here parts. Nope, I am from Brooklyn, New York. All right. For those of you who aren't clapping, it means you're unfamiliar with it. And let me just tell you, Manhattan was my backyard. I grew up with thick skin, direct words, and no need for political correctness. Yeah, Brooklynites, we are just a different breed. I was not easily offended. I rode my bike to my friend's house without even telling my mom. And get this, when I went door to door selling Girl Scout cookies, I actually went inside the person's house while they got the money. Try doing that today. My East Coast upbringing definitely led to an it's all about me attitude. Oh, don't believe me? Just ask my family. I legit had a bathroom curtain and towel set that read, "It's all about me." And in all honesty, I wasn't a bad person, but somehow when I was doing a good deed for someone, I kind of was looking for the what's in it for me angle. I was raised Catholic, and I went to church regularly and confession when I missed for some reason. And I carried my Catholic faith all the way through my marriage, and when my kids were old enough to go to CCD, which is Catholic Sunday School, I taught 2nd grade, preparing kids for First Communion. It's a long and potentially boring story, but let's just say I was seeing behind the curtain, and my faith started dwindling. On several occasions, I felt this internal nudge to support my mom at her Methodist church. I joined her there on Mother's Day and again when she was initiated. And let me tell you, after those 2 sermons, I knew it was time to move on from the Catholic Church. You see, the Methodist sermons, they spoke to me. They related to things I was going through. They explained how God still loved me even at my worst, which unfortunately was becoming my status quo. I had been angry and bitter, and I did not like who I was becoming. And when I stepped into that Methodist faith and actually opened a Bible, I learned how I should treat others. And quite frankly, I was mortified. I mean, I already told you I wasn't bad, but when I was giving food to a homeless person, I was like, "Hey, God, see what I'm doing?" Or when I would put my envelope in the collection plate, I was sure to do it in a way that the usher knew I was putting some money in there. This one's mine, this one's mine. On top of that, I used to be an eye roller when people would thank Jesus. I mean, like seriously, you guys have seen those award shows where these Hollywood stars get up and they drone on and on about how they I want to thank my director, I want to thank my co-stars, my spouses, my pet turtle, my makeup artist, but most importantly, I want to thank Jesus, amen, hallelujah. Oh my gosh, it was so ridiculous and they sounded so phony. But man, oh man, was I empty. Up until that time, praying to God for what I wanted was my only tool. Thankfully, the lessons I was learning taught me so much more. I started doing Bible studies and grew strongly in my faith. I began volunteering with service projects. I would create monthly Facebook challenges with the goal of lifting my friends up daily. I also learned then Jesus is my Savior. Go figure. I began listening to those gut instincts, those internal nudges. I didn't only pray for me on a daily basis, I prayed for others. And more importantly, I leaned on God during our toughest time, a time that led me to being here in Indiana. In October of 2019, I was feeling so stuck in my life. I had been laid off from my job for the second time. A contractor was giving us the runaround, and there were some personal conflicts that were frustrating. And then it happened. That internal nudge hit me so hard again that I blurted out to my husband, like, why are we still here? We should move to Indiana. Now, this isn't a typical statement for a Brooklynite, as you can imagine, but my husband is a native Hoosier, so it wasn't completely out of left field. But both of us were shocked that I uttered those words. Unlike me, who had been searching 4 months for a job, he found one a week later in Indianapolis, and there is no doubt that the internal nudge was the Holy Spirit. By January of 2020, he started the new job and left me and the kids in New Jersey, where we had now lived, to finish the school year. A couple of months later, he returned to New Jersey to work remotely for 2 weeks while we flattened the curve. I still get triggered when I tell this story because I remember how long those 2 weeks lasted. I remember how we saw my family from a distance and couldn't even hug, even though I knew I'd be moving 11 hours away from them in a matter of weeks. Eventually, the mental risk of not hugging each other won out, and we all took deep breaths, ran in for the best hugs ever, backed up, and exhaled. We packed up our entire house alone, except for an hour prior to the pandemic. There were times we didn't think we could do it. And that's when we relied on God. Please, just show us the next step. We arrived in Westfield on August 2nd, 2020, in the heart of the pandemic. We were blessed to find a rental place for 2 months while our house was being built. The rental house was just set up for short-term stays, and there was just one TV with limited programming. I was 11 hours away from my family. My kids had been torn from their schools, never to go back. And my husband was trying to figure out a new job in the midst of all the chaos. Through a local mom's Facebook page, I was able to meet a couple of mothers and their daughters at the local Dairy Queen, because luckily they had outdoor seating. It was the first time we felt like we might be able to make a life here. Shortly thereafter, we moved into our new home and made friends with a few neighbors. We started breathing a sigh of relief, knowing God placed us where we needed to be. Toward the end of the year, another mom posted on that page how she was tired of fake friends. I saw all the responses from the other women who were just as hungry for friendship. It was December 2020, after all, and people were so lonely, and the holidays were only making it worse. The Holy Spirit put upon my heart to create a Facebook page dedicated to helping women make friends through events. You can't go to the page and ask for recommendations. That's what the mom's page is for. You can't go to the page and complain about your husbands, even though there is so much to say there. But not for mine, of course. I love you. Yeah, I'll be in trouble later. You can only ask someone if they want to go for a walk or for lunch or to play bunco, which we did not have in Brooklyn, people. The group started in January of 2021 and has blossomed into, thank you. Okay, come on. You haven't even heard the best part yet. It has blossomed into a community of over 3,400 women who have bonded over margaritas, music, books, exercise, and a whole host of other events. And not only have they benefited, but their children and even some spouses have made connections. I have had the honor and privilege of meeting so many of these women, and let me tell you, we aren't all built the same. We range from crazy extreme extroverts to quiet, shy introverts. We have people who want to stay for just a little bit, to those who never want to go home. There are women who are happy to sit in silence during an entire event, and those who want to get in the last word. Some women can afford to eat at Prime 47, and others who survive on rice and beans. And just like Jesus, I give them all a place at the table because it's no longer all about me. Thank you. And because I started this group, women's lives have been transformed. Widows are finding a reason to live again. Single moms have the support of a community. Women who experience sexual, physical, and emotional abuse now have someone to lean on. You know, there's a man in his 90s who lived in Zionsville for over 60 years. As a gift to the community, he created hundreds of metal sculptures on his property. And he used to repaint them every year, but now he was just too old to do so. I asked the women from the Facebook group if anyone would like to volunteer to help paint his sculptures. The outpouring of support was incredible, and someone who worked with CertaPro Painter was actually in the group. And very long story short, CertaPro stepped in and organized everything to help this man, including free paint from Sherwin-Williams, free food from Amori Pizzeria, and news coverage. Because of me, over 100 people showed up and repainted his sculptures. Because of me, hundreds and hundreds of women now have friends. Because of me, there is a community of women who are accepting and loving toward strangers. Because of me. And I am nobody special. I bet if I asked a number of you what my story is about, you'd say I started a group connecting thousands of women. And while that is an impressive act, that's not what is stage-worthy to me. What's stage-worthy is that while so many others ignore it, I was strong enough, confident enough, and faithful enough to follow the Holy Spirit, and by doing so, I have enriched the lives of countless people. And before I wrap up, I do want to thank those countless people, the thousands of women in the friendship group, many who are here tonight. I want to thank my parents and my best friend who drove 11 and 6 hours respectively to be in attendance. Thank you. My husband, Joe, who loves me unconditionally. My daughter, Joey, my son, Robbie, who are great, even if they don't always act like it. But most importantly, from the bottom of my heart, I want to thank Jesus. This one's for you.
We are kids Voice of Indiana. Since 1985, we advocate, educate, and protect the children and youth in our community. Advocate for children and youth in the family court system. Educate to prevent abuse and inform best practice. And protect children and family relationships. With your help and your community of supporters today, we are turning up the volume to amplify the voice of more Hoosier children and youth than ever before. To reflect our resounding impact, we've refreshed our look, our mission, and our vision. Our mission is to amplify the voice of children and youth in the legal system to improve individual outcomes and to inspire system-wide advances. And our vision is a child-centered legal system that protects children, contributes to their well-being, and promotes family preservation. Come see our mission in action and learn how you can use your voice for a child that needs one. Because little voices need big amplifiers.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the stage your host, Ms. Katie Vigil.
Hello, Indianapolis. Welcome back. I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce you to Lindsay Scott, CEO of Kids Voice of Indiana.
Thank you, Katie.
Each That's What She Said show partners with a local nonprofit organization, and we are so thrilled that proceeds from tonight's show are going to support this amazing organization.
Thank you, Katie. We are so grateful and excited to be the charity partner for the show tonight. We really want to thank That's What She Said and this entire amazing project. We encourage you, if something in our video resonated with you, please find out more about us, visit our website so that you can amplify the stories of the 5,000 children that we serve every year, many who are abused and neglected. So enjoy the rest of your night, and thank you so much again.
Thank you, Lindsay. Okay, now I know that you all heard some really amazing stories during that first act, and we have some even more stories for you in this upcoming act. But before we do, I want to take this moment to acknowledge those who have helped make this evening possible. Our presenting sponsor, CIBM Bank. Yes. They have been so supportive, helping us launch the very first show here in Indiana, and we are just so honored and grateful to have worked with them. Thank you to my amazing real estate team, FC Tucker Writings Realty Group. Yes, thank you. Foundry 317, this beautiful set behind me is from Foundry 317. Thank you for making our stage so beautiful this evening. There are many local businesses who said yes to supporting our show tonight. Like our photography team, let's give them a round of applause, from Ascension Imaging Studios. And Nancy Vesley, who's in the audience with IHC Specialty Benefits Advisors, and all of these amazing sponsors that are on the slide here. All of these businesses believe in women and believed in us, so please take a moment to look through your program, learn about them, and make sure that you support them. They are amazing businesses and organizations that make our community incredible and have made this evening possible. And finally, thank you all for showing up tonight to support all of these incredible women on this stage. Or because you heard about this thing called That's What She Said and wanted to find out for yourself what this is all about. The She Said Project and That's What She Said shows are taking the world by storm. And I'd like to introduce you to the woman responsible for leading this expansion, the director of our show and national director of the She Said Project, Jenette Jurczyk.
Good evening. Thank you so much, Katie. And thank you so much for being here for the very first show, not just here, but in the state of Indiana. This is the very first, That's What She Said, right? That's What She Said started, it was a one-night event. It was meant to be one night bringing women together to share some stories. That was 10 years ago and 20-something shows ago, and we are growing. I believe this is our 6th show in 2023, and we have 2 more scheduled, and we have 11 planned for 2024. So we are absolutely growing. And so in this amazing decade, we have our main stage event, but we also realize that there's a lot more power in sharing stories. And so we have an empowerment program for teen girls called That's What Teens Say that is growing. Yes, thank you. If you love what you've heard tonight and you want to connect with more women and hear more stories, you can check us out at the She Said Project podcast, anywhere you choose to podcast, hosted by myself and Miss Carrie Rosso. Yes. And celebrating our decade of That's What She Said stories, we launched our publishing company, She Said Press, and released our very first published collection of women's stories earlier this year. Thank you. And we are building our very first conference for women who want to dig a little deeper and explore their own stories next month in Champaign, Illinois. So much going on. You can follow us at She Said Project or shesaidproject.com if you want to know more. We are so grateful for you being here tonight. Thank you to Katie. This amazing cast of women, I have the distinct honor of working with every single one of them to help them find their story and prepare them for the show tonight. They are so fantastic, and they each have a special place in my heart. So let's get them back out here and continue the show. Yeah?
Let's do it.
So let's welcome back
your
2023
That's What She Said speakers.
My story starts less than 2 years ago when I was paralyzed from the neck down and told I would likely never walk again. I grew up with scoliosis, which is also considered curvature of the spine. After years of worsening pain, I found a surgeon who was willing and able to operate to fix my S-curve and straighten my spine. On September 7th, 2021, I endured a 9-hour back surgery. Doctors would refer to it as a successful spinal fusion surgery, complete with cadaver bone, donated tissue, 2 titanium rods, and a large handful of screws. I knew it was a tough road to recovery, but I had no idea of the journey that laid ahead of me. I went home 4 days after surgery and quickly became more and more uncomfortable. The adjustment to having metal in my back was expected, but the other problems crept to the surface. Digestion issues, increasing weakness in my limbs, and severe pain that would bring me to tears. After 3 trips to the emergency room, I was admitted to a nearby hospital when they discovered I had severely low sodium, but they struggled to figure out what else was wrong with me. I had walked with my walker into that hospital, and little did I know that would be the last time I'd walk for a while. On the 2nd day of being hospitalized, my feet and legs had increasingly grown more tingly and numb until they were completely paralyzed. On the 3rd day, my hands and arms became tingly and numb until I could no longer use my arms either. By the 4th day, my vocal cords had become paralyzed. I was able to merely whisper. My pain was so intense throughout my body that I mostly slept as a response to the pain meds and the mess that was happening inside of me. Let me tell you, I have never felt more helpless in my entire life. On the 6th day, I was transferred by ambulance to a larger hospital in Indianapolis. Every single doctor that entered the room held their hand below my feet, and asked me to step on the gas. Nothing. After a myriad of tests, including a lumbar puncture, this team of doctors were finally able to confirm a diagnosis. It wasn't until I was paralyzed from my neck down to my toes that they diagnosed me with Guillain-Barré syndrome, otherwise referred to as GBS, and it's sometimes pronounced as Guillain-Barré syndrome. GBS is an incredibly rare neurological disorder in which the body's immune system attacks the nerves. This causes muscle weakness and paralysis, which can range from mild to severe. It is estimated that about 1 in 100,000 people will develop it each year. The exact cause of GBS is unknown, but it's often triggered by an infection, is linked to a vaccination, or it can sometimes occur after surgeries. In Guillain-Barré patients, their nerves are fried, and nerves regenerate at 1 inch per month. And there is almost 45 miles of nerves in the adult human body. There's no known cure, but there are treatments that can sometimes help in recovery. I had 5 rounds of plasmapheresis while in the ICU for 3 weeks. These were the big guns, but my body was not responding as the doctors had hoped. My shoulders and arms began to show some response to the treatments with little movement. My legs and feet, they weren't moving at all. I believe if I had my diagnosis a few days earlier, I would have received treatment sooner, then my recovery might have been a hell of a lot easier. You have no idea how hopeless I felt to have doctor after doctor come into the exam room and ask me to step on the gas. All the while, I stared down at my right foot, and there was no movement. The doctor would then hold their hand underneath my left foot and ask me again to step on the gas. Once again, and no matter how much my brain willed my foot to move, the message being sent was not being received. As the doctor shared my diagnosis, they expressed their dim outlook for my future. GBS can cause permanent nerve damage, which can lead to continued weakness, numbness, and tingling, long-term paralysis, severe fatigue, and even death. One doctor ended his spiel with a very blunt, harsh statement: "I may never walk again." His words echoed in my ears. Certainly, he was wrong. Certainly, he had never met me. Certainly, he didn't know the passion and drive that I possessed. A couple of days later, something inside of me snapped. I would walk again. I would fight whatever GBS wanted to throw at me, and I would prove this doctor and his team wrong. Thank you. This fight began with 69 days in the hospital, working to regain some strength and complete simple tasks that I took for granted. I learned how to brush my teeth again. I learned how to get in and out of a car with a transfer board from my electric wheelchair. I learned how to dress myself again. And that, my friends, was huge. As remember, I not only had mobility and strength issues, but I was still recovering from major back surgery with 2 titanium rods, screws in my hips and up my spine, and thus now preventing me from even bending over to put on my own socks. When my physical therapist and team put me in the solo step overhead track and harness system, I was terrified of falling. They wanted to remind my legs what it felt like to stand again, and to ignite the muscle memory. They moved my legs as if I was walking, but I wasn't the one moving them. It was the strangest feeling to not be in control of my own body. This was my daily ritual until I was able to bear weight without collapsing like a bowl of Jell-O. I learned how to take a mere 4 steps from one bright yellow line of tape to the next with assistance and a walker. I couldn't even feel the floor beneath my feet. I still can't. Was all of that yellow tape a sign for me to proceed with caution? That's a sign. Those were the longest days of my life, being in that rehabilitation hospital, away from my supportive and loving husband, away from my incredibly compassionate daughters, away from my job, away from my home, entirely away from my life. It's amazing how much you reassess what's important in life when tragedy strikes. When I asked to go home, rather than the suggested long-term nursing care facility, my rehab hospital care team fought my decision, but I won. Well, kind of. I came home in an electric wheelchair right before Thanksgiving. I truly had so much to be thankful for. I had a loaner wheelchair until my insurance would approve one to be built for me. I look back at this tired old wheelchair that moved so cumbersomely around my house and went less than 1 mile per hour as a total and complete blessing. I knew that I had to do more. I had to push myself even harder as I felt I could not rely on this old chair. So I did. Each day, I gave it more and more to walk again. I kept stepping on the gas, little by little. I have worked and continue to work incredibly hard on my journey to healing. I still struggle with balance, hence the stool, fatigue, muscle weakness, and grip strength challenges with my hands. And like I said earlier, I cannot feel the floor beneath my feet. But hey, look at me today. My amazing physical therapist and occupational therapists that have worked with me for over 20 months now were incredibly impactful on my journey, and I am forever grateful. My awesome doctors have been incredibly instrumental in leading me back to health, both mentally and physically. My tenacious and loving husband, Matthew, worked full-time, then every single evening, he would come to the rehab hospital and assist me in a nightly routine. He would move my legs, completing 6 pages, front and back, of leg exercises every single night. He would assist me in getting the 13 pillows that I slept on all prepped for me, as GBS causes severe nerve pain. He has been present for every step of the way on this journey, and I am forever grateful. Our oldest daughter, Hannah, temporarily moved home when I was hospitalized. She was blessed to be able to work remotely, help love on our 2 small dogs, my husband, and our home. She visited me most days while working full-time, pursuing a master's degree and teaching piano. Whew, I get tired just saying all of that she had going on in her world. Nonetheless, she showed up and brought smile after smile to encourage me on this crazy journey, and she still does. She would cook sometimes and bring me delicious meals, which made the hospital food taste like what I presumed jail food would taste like. Our youngest daughter, Carly, was a student at Purdue, pursuing a degree in athletic training. She's now a grad student at Duke University, pursuing a doctorate of physical therapy. Her education and background training has been instrumental in my physical healing. Carly would help figure out ways for me to accomplish things that I was struggling to do in our home. She too has always encouraged me. Her phone calls and constant check-ins were just what the doctor ordered. As you can tell, my family means everything to me. They are my rocks, they're my driving force, they're the loves of my life. I would do anything for the three of them. You see, I always thought myself as being the glue. Their leader, their source of strength, their organizer, the supporter, and the encourager. Never did I think that I would need all of this from them. These three people banded together and became all I needed, and then some. I was also blessed to be raised by an incredible mom who has passed away. She was dedicated, independent, compassionate, and a single mother. She fought so hard throughout life. She was a school teacher, and she taught me valuable lessons never learned from a textbook. She single-handedly instilled in me the equal desire to work hard and not give up. And to those lessons, I am forever grateful. Ultimately, without my incredible faith, I would not be where I am today. God has taken my hand and allowed me to step on the gas daily. I've achieved many goals throughout my life, and I'm here tonight to achieve another, to help all of you realize the profound importance of facing every obstacle with an unwaveringly positive mindset. The key to my healing journey was rooted deep within my mind, where I clung tightly to the power of optimism propelling me forward, despite the challenges that lay in wait. It's only natural to feel overwhelmed when adversity strikes, but in those very moments, we are given a chance to summon our inner strength and to prove to ourselves that we can conquer even the most daunting circumstances. Don't be afraid to step on the gas.
I would love to have a child with special needs. Those were the words that came out of my mouth as I sat in a meeting with my team of first grade teachers discussing the diversity of our students. I elaborated, and I told them that if I had a child with special needs, I would advocate for them, make sure they were dressed nicely, make sure they were well taken care of, and had all the things that their typically developing peers had and would experience. As a first grade teacher, I knew how I would approach inclusion in the classroom and how to be an involved parent. Oh yeah. And I forgot to mention that I was 8.5 months pregnant at the time with my healthy, typically developing baby boy. 15 days before my scheduled C-section, I went in for a final ultrasound before delivery just so I could see how much he was gonna weigh. After the ultrasound, almost an hour went by before someone came in the room. I contemplated a few times about leaving the room to see if they forgot about me, but they hadn't. Finally, the nurse practitioner opened the door less than halfway. Her body was clinging to the door with one foot in and one foot out, as if she just wanted to deliver me a quick message. She said, "Kelli, I think we see something in the scan. It's called a dilated umbilical cord. I've already scheduled an appointment for you with maternal fetal medicine." She hands me an appointment card reminder, as if this is an appointment that I wouldn't remember. As she told me this, my body tensed up. I could see she was very nervous, as she suggested that I do not Google it. And hurriedly, she assured me that I shouldn't be alarmed. Who knows what a dilated umbilical cord is? I don't. I asked her to explain more, but she didn't. She said I would get more detailed information at my next appointment. She leaves, and I'm in shock, mostly because I felt that the medical team just dropped a bomb on me without any real explanation. And y'all know I Googled it. 13 days before my scheduled C-section, I walked into the maternal fetal medicine office. I was greeted by the front desk staff. They casually asked me if I knew why I was there. Yeah, I have a dilated umbilical cord. Their mouths dropped. That should have been the first sign to let me know that something was off. They escorted me to the ultrasound room. After the scan, the tech told me that the doctor would be in after reading the results. He walked in. We looked at the nuchal fold, noticed the heart defect, and duodenal atresia. Ms. Caughman, we believe your child has trisomy 21, also known as Down syndrome. Do you have any questions? Only about 1,000,001. But at the moment, I got nothing. I was still in shock. I simply said, no, not at this time. They left me alone to take it all in and suggested I call someone, family. My husband, Travis, was hours away in training for the Army. No phone access for 2 weeks. My parents lived in South Carolina. I Googled my mom's work number after she didn't answer her phone a few times. When I reached her, I told her the info that had just been dropped on me. My mom cried, but I held it in. She told me it would be all right. My husband's aunt and uncle lived in Indy and immediately came to be with me. The doctor explained that the only way to know 100% that my child would have Down syndrome would be to have an amniocentesis or just to wait to have further testing after I deliver. I opted to have the amniocentesis that day so that I would feel somewhat prepared for a baby that would be born into this world with Down syndrome. I knew in my heart he had Down syndrome. There was just a peace within me. To this day, I appreciate how the doctor delivered the info, straight to the point, no emotion. It was as if he was telling me it would be okay without saying it. Deep inside me, I knew it would be okay. I had to use the American Red Cross to get the news to Travis. When I talked to him, he was so strong, so encouraging, and positive. He said everything that I needed to hear. From miles away, I felt all the love and support. On January 27th, 2015, I told my family, friends, Facebook, and Instagram that my child would be born with Down syndrome. I made up in my mind that I would not hide my child from the world. I shouted his worth then, and I still do it to this day. My baby Cree came as scheduled, and we learned that he didn't just have Down syndrome. The day after he was born, he had a surgery that required us to stay in the NICU for a little over 3 weeks. Travis was able to stay for about a week. I had to juggle being alone with my 8-year-old daughter, Ryan, and a baby with complex feeding issues in a city where I don't personally have family, and Travis had orders for us to move in just a few months. Then there was the looming idea that Crete had to have heart surgery 7 months after he was born. The Army moved us to Fort Lee, Virginia. Cree had his open heart surgery, and I remember the doctors pulling me and Travis in a small room after surgery and genuinely asking us if we were okay, checking in on our mental health. They told us they had never seen a family so calm. They were very concerned about us. Those years in Virginia turned out to be a huge blessing. It was there where we felt like our family grew up, where we became whole. I formed a support group of women that prayed with me, stayed with me, fellowshiped with me. I was able to witness the life experiences of women of all ages from different parts of the world. I joined a women's Bible study group. I felt pulled to tell people my testimony. While writing my story, I had a big realization. I verbally asked to have this child. It was so powerful. I remember giving my testimony to a group of about 100 women on a Wednesday morning. Growing up in the South, I had heard many people say there's power in the tongue and to speak things into existence. I realized that on that day, I was telling my teammates what I wanted. I was making a request. They say God will give you the desires of your heart, and he did. With wisdom, I came to realize that I have a purpose. I'm walking in it right now. I've been advocating like a mother. I joined all the Down syndrome groups, volunteered, and joined boards both locally and nationally. I even recently started my own nonprofit organization that serves Black people with Down syndrome and their families. Because there is an intersectionality between race and Down syndrome, and I am now in a position to help do something about it. It hasn't always been easy. I was all in from the beginning. And along the way, I found out what stress was like, what worry was like, what anxiety felt like. After I had my third baby a year later, I started experiencing panic attacks. They came out of nowhere. Finally, one day, my mom sat me down to tell me I was doing too much. That's when I took the time to confront my feelings. I had been on go mode ever since I had Cree, and here I was with another baby the following year. She was right. I had to slow down. I had been advocating so hard for so long that my identity was being known only as Cree's mom. But I also had Ryan, who is 8 years older, and Knox, who's almost 2 years younger. I struggled in my relationship with Knox because for a while, I didn't feel close to him. In fact, there are things I don't even remember. I now know that I was dealing with postpartum depression. And parenting Cree was such a large part of my life, it still is. But I've learned balance and how to let go. I've learned how to outsource help and be a better mom for all of my kids. Cree goes to school every day, dressed nicely, has all the things his typical peers have and experience. I am a very involved parent who believes that inclusion in the classroom works. I know that God gave me the family that I asked for so I could be a role model, an example for parents, and advocate for children with special needs everywhere.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I'm so scared. Time out. If you know, you know. For those of you who don't, I'm quoting a classic Saved by the Bell line from Jessie Spano. She admits to being overwhelmed and hooked on caffeine pills to handle the pressure she puts on herself. If you didn't know, Google it after the show. No pills here, but I have had 2 cups of coffee today and a venti iced brown sugar oat milk shake and espresso. I'm a firstborn daughter, an Enneagram 3W2, perfectionist, overachiever, type A, struggling to enter recovery people pleaser. But also the little girl who just dreamed of being a mama one day. I wanted to pour all my energy into motherhood. So, let's go back. Let's meet high school Cara. Cheerleader, student council, student paper writer. If there was an advanced class, I took it. Hamilton Southeastern High School wasn't quite Bayside High. And even though I was doing all the things, I knew there was so much more I wanted from life. I wanted to build relationships, help others, make everyone around me happy, but most importantly, experience big love and raise a family. The universe had a funny way of preparing high school Cara for all that I wished for. It was the summer of 1999. I was working one of my 2 part-time jobs, Harbor Tan and Geist. Yep. You know, putting this palm tree sticker or maybe even a Playboy bunny on your midriff was all the rage for the tan line. I know, some of you did that too. Yes, me too. Anyway, I was at the desk and one of our regulars finished up a session and walked out without saying bye. For the sake of our story, we're gonna call him Larry. Larry always did a stand-up bed. If you've worked at a tanning salon, you can appreciate that. Wiping down the walls of a stand-up bed is so much easier than the potential pool of sweat you might find in a lay-down bed. Or so I thought until that evening. I started walking down the hall to his room. The door was closed. Larry never closed the door when he was done. I get a little closer. And there's a real smell in the air. The odor was pretty strong, and I wasn't to the door yet. I was terrified to open it, but I was the only one there, so I had to. Do you know what splatter painting is? That is the most accurate description I can give you of what I saw when I opened that door. It was like someone had splatter painted the entire room brown. Yes, shit was everywhere. Remember those stand-up bed walls that I said were easier to clean? Shit was on them. It was on the real walls too. You know, stand-up beds, they have holes in the bases. It was in the holes and on the base. It was on the carpet. Tanning beds have those giant coils where you plug them in, those electrical cords. Yeah, shit was in them too. And if I thought there could not possibly be any more, it was in the trash can too. I was facing a real-life shitstorm. Sorry, Mom. So today we take a pic, text a friend, post it all over social media. Anything to share the experience, right? But it's 1999. No cell phone. I was facing this thing alone. Maybe it was the universe's way of saying if you want to be a mama, you need to be prepared to handle some major blowouts. I just didn't expect the first one I battled to be from a grown man. So that desire to overachieve and become a mama wasn't deterred by this incident and influenced many of my decisions throughout the rest of high school and college. I was the girl who always had a long-term boyfriend. I had 5 serious relationships between high school and my Ball State days. They were all at least a year long, and most of them taught me things I did not want from a real relationship. I took packed course loads, joined a sorority, met amazing friends, and really lived life. After college, I moved back to Indy, and shortly after started working at my current employer. Then, with the amazing help of my mom, I was able to buy my first house in Fishers. I felt like I had made it through step 1 of my Type A life plan. The dream of being back in Fishers, finding the one, having babies, and raising a family in this amazing community I grew up in was actually going to happen. Then, 2011, and God laughs at my plans, or so I thought. Following much hard work and people-pleasing my way through several roles within the organization, I was asked to move to Champaign, Illinois for a promotion. After a lot of reflection and time spent convincing myself that I wasn't giving up on my dream, I decided to take the leap and move to this city where I didn't know anyone at all. It was only 2 hours away. The first couple of months were pretty darn lonely, but in May of that year, I met Luke. We were in 2 completely different places in life. My career was thriving, and when he would introduce himself to my friends, he would tell them he was in the oil business. He's 6.5 years younger, and at the time was still in school and working at a gas station. Yep, not quite the oil business. But he was the best person I'd ever met. He didn't have any of those things that I had learned I didn't want, and we had a very similar outlook on life and future goals. He is definitely the calm to my crazy, the chill to my tendency to overcommit, so thank goodness I took that leap. I can't even imagine what life would be like had I tried to stick with the original plan. In 2013, we got married, and when my amazing maid of honor, my sister, rapped her entire wedding toast to "Damn, it feels good to be a gangster," my favorite lyric was, "Baby Nug stepping up today." I'm so lucky that no matter how many times I commit to something I really don't have time for or take on something new, I'm not doing it alone. He may not always agree with me, and he might wish I said no a little or a lot more often, but he always supports me. I have never had to face another shitstorm alone. Life has been full of so many amazing moments, but like anyone, we have had to weather our fair share of storms, other storms. Being cougar adjacent isn't always easy. I wanted babies really badly, and my clock was ticking. He, on the other hand, had all the time in the world. So naturally, we compromised, and we started to grow our family immediately, or started trying. 2014 was one of those years that felt like whenever we got through one of life's storms, another one was already brewing. It was New Year's Eve. We're at our friend's house. Luke decides, hey, let's jump off a 12-foot platform on the kids' play structure with a rope swing. Good idea. The branch holding the swing snapped, and Luke fell hard. Have you been to the ER really early on New Year's Day morning? Yeah, it's what you can imagine. It's a mess. And the assumption is if you're there, you did something dumb under the influence. So, sober or not, we caught all the dirty looks from the doctors. The fall was pretty bad. He had a compression fracture of the T12 vertebrae, and after a few days laying flat on his back in the hospital, identified as a fall risk, he was lucky to leave in just a giant hard brace for the next 4 months. A few days after leaving the hospital, we finally got a positive pregnancy test. 6 months of trying had felt like an eternity to me. We were over the moon. With a family trip to Mexico already scheduled, we couldn't wait to celebrate in paradise, even if it meant one of us was stuck in a giant back brace for the entire trip and had to take a few extra painkillers to make it through the flight. We thought our storm had passed, but like the weather in Indiana, you just never know. Sadly, I miscarried while we were in Mexico, and miscarriage is hard. And having it happen in a foreign country definitely didn't make it any easier. We hadn't told anyone but my little sister that we were pregnant, so we didn't share the miscarriage news with anyone else either. Of course, Luke was supportive. He is always a rock. We were in it together, but that giant back brace was between us, keeping us apart, and kept it so we weren't actually even able to hug. That made it a little extra lonely. By July of that year, we were feeling like we had weathered a lot, but still so grateful to have each other. Then, we lost one of our very best friends, a bridesmaid in our wedding, tragically and unexpectedly. She was an amazing mother, wife, sister, daughter, and friend. It was unimaginable and unexplainable. It is the greatest loss I've experienced, but I'm such a better person because she was in my life. In September, finally some good news. We were pregnant again. And I know in my heart, this was my friend working a miracle from heaven. She knew how much I wanted to be a mama. We had talked so much about it. So in May of 2017, our amazing Brecken arrived, and becoming a mama was everything I dreamed of. That little dude's pretty perfect. Being the type A planner I am, I really wanted to have our children 2 to 3 years apart, schedule everything. So when the window arrived, we started trying again. This time, we were surprised because it didn't take long. Our sweet Eleanor was born 2 years and 24 days after Brecken. She came along when she did for a reason. My 6-week postpartum checkup was the beginning of a series of appointments that led to a cervical cancer diagnosis. While I feel super fortunate, I didn't have to undergo chemo or radiation. My treatment plan included a hysterectomy. Losing the ability to have more kids wasn't something I planned on, and I mourned that loss pretty hard. I did receive a clean bill of health, and we are blessed with 2 amazing kiddos. They fill our lives with so much joy. While my brain knew this, my heart still hurt for what couldn't be. And it took time for me to heal and accept that we were done growing our little family. Through it all, Luke remained strong and supportive. I'll say it again, I can't imagine life without him. But there's no rest for a firstborn daughter. I quickly took on 3 more roles within my organization, and for the last 5 years have reported directly to our CEO as a director of marketing. In 2021, we experienced a COVID blessing and were able to move back to Fishers, where I have been working remotely ever since. Luke was able to find a new job. It's actually right around the corner from here as a software engineer. He's come a long way since the oil business. Since returning home, I have proudly taken on many new roles. Soccer mama, cheer mom, PTO co-president, and I really think those are my best roles ever. Weathering those real-life shitstorms together allowed me to achieve my ultimate goal of family and mama. We get to raise our kiddos 5 minutes from my parents in a community I grew up in. Our kiddos are truly living their best lives, and we are surrounded by the best people. Jessie Spano may have quit her caffeine pills, but I'm gonna keep doing all the things. So don't take my coffee or my spicy margaritas with the incredible ladies throughout the room that support my habit of never saying no. No matter what shit comes my way, when surrounded with the people I love, it is a lot easier to handle.
I was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed child. Okay, this is gonna be fun. The oldest of 4 in a small town in Ohio. Life was pretty good until the end of 1st grade, when something strange happened. I hit a growth spurt. I quickly grew a number of inches, which made me one of the tallest kids in my class. My eyesight changed, which required me to wear glasses, and my hair became crazy curly and totally unmanageable. My good-intentioned parents helped me pick out a pair of eyeglasses with bright blue frames that, according to the eye doctor anyway, were what all the cool kids were wearing. My grandmother, whose hair was fine and permed weekly, assured me that every girl dreamed of having hair like mine. And clearly, I must be the envy of all my female classmates. Well, I knew Grandma would never lie to me. So I held my head high and felt confident that my popularity was about to skyrocket. Well, we all know how cruel children can be to each other. And it didn't take long for most of the kids at school to start making fun of the giant girl with blue glasses and totally crazy hair. Even some of my closest friends joined in. I was promptly nicknamed Mrs. Beasley. Remember her? Here we go. Yeah. Remember her? Yeah. She was a regular on the American sitcom Family Affair. She was Buffy's doll that never said a word, but everyone who knew who she was. Believe me, everyone knew who she was. I realize now that there were many other nicknames they could have called me that would have been so much worse, but I didn't care. From 2nd grade through the end of my junior year in high school, very few of my classmates knew me by any other name than Mrs. Beasley. It was horrible. With that nickname came years filled with many incidents that my memory has chosen to blur the specific details of because they were so painful. However, even though I graduated more than 40 years ago, I can't believe that, the pain felt during those years is still as real and as fresh as if it happened yesterday. Yeah, okay. One such incident was the time when two of the meanest girls in my class decided to call me at home. They just wanted to make sure I knew how worthless I was. Toward the end of the very upsetting phone call, my mother had enough, and she grabbed the telephone receiver from me and started yelling at my attackers through the receiver. My mother still recalls that she told the girls that it was illegal for anyone to call someone at home to harass them. She had convinced them that they were going to jail. Thanks, Mom. A big high five for my mom. Yes. Fortunately, the phone call stopped, but the harassment at school just got worse. I still have no idea if calls like that are illegal, but if they aren't, they should be. Then there was the time that one of the meanest boys in school, in my class, decided he was going to make my day particularly awful. And it just so happened that his mother was a substitute lunchroom lady that same day. As I walked into the lunchroom, I was absolutely devastated when he and his mother were standing together, laughing and pointing at me. All I heard was laughter, and Mrs. Beasley chanted over and over again. As I looked around the room, it literally seemed as if everyone else had joined in the chant. Something broke inside me that day, and my trust of adults was never the same after that. Things got so bad that I spent most of my time trying to avoid eye contact and any other interactions with the majority of my classmates. I did everything I could to stay out of their way and out of the spotlight. I kept to myself and spoke only when spoken to. My self-esteem was about as low as it could be. I was lonely and I longed to be invisible, yet my heart ached to belong to their world and come out of the shadows. Well, everything changed one fateful day while I was sitting in my 4th grade class, music class actually. My teacher, Mrs. Womack, who was a short, round woman with bottle-rimmed glasses and energy that was always on high, asked me to sing a couple lines of a song. I literally froze for a moment, and then there was this little voice inside me that asked, "What have you got to lose?" Well, I didn't have much. So I opened my mouth and closed my eyes, and what came out I had never heard before. It was my voice. Thank you. Thank you. There was a feeling of freedom and power that I had never felt before, and I was smitten. Looking back, I often wonder if Mrs. Womack knew how much I needed a friend like that. Was that why she made the introduction? Had she been in my shoes at some point and sensed a kindred soul? She was odd in her own way, so I believe deep down she understood. Unfortunately, I never got a chance to ask her, even though we did stay in touch for many years after that. Over the next few years, my relationship with music grew. We became best friends when I had very few of them. It didn't care if I towered over everyone, wore bright blue glasses, and had crazy curly hair. Music taught me a new way to connect with the others, and that had nothing to do with the outward appearance. It had to do with connecting to emotions and the inner self. I found music spoke a language that knows no boundaries or age limits. Through music, I learned how to communicate with others on a much deeper level than I'd ever known before. The more positive responses I got from my listeners, the more I wanted to sing. I truly could not get enough. I was hooked. Call it a drug, if you will, but nothing had ever made me feel the way music did. I felt truly alive. When I sang, I knew that anything was possible, and it truly became my superpower. Thank you. Musical theater called my name and opened its arms wide. I jumped in the beautiful songs of Rodgers and Hammerstein and numerous others. Many Oklahomas and Sounds of Music later, I could not imagine having more fun or feeling happier. I started singing for churches and special interest groups, primarily older adult groups. Turns out my favorite music was their favorite music, and they paid me for it. Never mind that I was a quarter of most of their ages. That was years ago, okay? They didn't care. My music spoke to them. They literally lined up after my programs to share the memories that my songs brought back to them. I collected a treasure chest of beautiful stories to share with my other audiences. I learned about the songs from the people who had lived through them, and it wasn't long before I started calling my shows musical walks down memory lane. They weren't all my memories. Mrs. Beasley was not gone. She was still part of my life, but with music by my side, I was getting chosen for choir solos and leading the musical female roles. Mrs. Beasley was now cool, and many of my classmates wanted to be my friend. But I didn't need them anymore. That sounds really nasty. Thank you. Music had introduced me to all of its friends, and I was busy getting to know them with no need for these others, whatever they were. Anyway, finally, I belonged to something. I was making my own kind of music and loving every second of it. Let me tell you, time truly flies when you're having fun, because the next few years were gone before I knew it. I graduated from high school and college, met the most wonderful man in the world whose birthday is today, and he's in the audience, and I love him very much, whatever. We got married. It's his birthday. I have to acknowledge his birthday. Thank you. Thank you. We got married and had 3 children fairly quick. We did it with a set of twins and a single son. And it was really wonderful. My husband understood my love affair with music from day one, and he has supported me without reservation ever since. So fast forward to today. I sing almost every day. I get paid well for it. I have woven music into every corner of my life. I was even known for a short time as the singing insurance agent. I'll be happy to share that story some other time or after the show if you're interested. Music has taught me so many lessons. Above all, I've learned that we're all unique with our own special gifts and personal struggles. We all have so much going on that you can't see just by simply looking at us. It's when we take the time to get to know each other that we can truly understand and authentically communicate. And there are many ways to communicate. Music has been my mode of communication for years. Thank you, Mrs. Womack. Music has blessed me more times than I can count. Winning the Toledo Easter Seals Talent Showcase, which included recording my first demo tape, being chosen as a finalist in the Ed McMahon's Next Big Star, basically the internet version of Star Search, and being part of a band that opened for the Moody Blues. And those are just some of the stories. Thank you. Someday I am going to write a book all about my musical adventures. Again, thank you, Mrs. Womack. Life has not been perfect. It has had its ups and downs for sure, but through it all, music has remained my superpower. When the world seems to be against me, I know music is always there, and it has never let me down. So, I challenge you, what is your superpower? And how do you intend to make your own kind of music?
I took my first drink at a party at the young age of 14. And on that very night, my codependent love-hate relationship with alcohol began. I've had an on-again, off-again love affair with it ever since. Popular culture glamorizes it, yet it often destroys lives. It has the ability to deceive people with its charm and promise of a good time, yet frequently leaves a trail of destruction. You'll usually find it at every holiday, celebration, festival, vacation, and just about every life event. It took me so damn long to figure out if I should love alcohol or hate it. For years, I drank to drown out my social anxiety and insecurities, and was probably what you would just call a social drinker. But drinking slowly started consuming more and more time in my life than it deserved. Yet I could never seem to let it go. Because if I stopped, how would I emotionally connect with anyone? How would I even go to social events? Who would I be? The only Katie people knew was Katie who had alcohol running through her veins. It became my dopamine rush, my escape, and my source of courage for as long as I can remember. When my family and I moved to the Indy area, I thought to myself, a new area, a fresh start, a place to create new memories. Unfortunately, I brought my baggage and booze with us. I was a stay-at-home mom. My husband was frequently traveling for work, often for months at a time. My kids were in school. So there was plenty of opportunity for my lover, aka wine, and I to spend more time together. I was no longer a social drinker. I had definitely crossed the line into that whole gray area of drinking. I needed to admit to myself and everyone around me that I am not in control of alcohol. That first drink typically would always lead to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. In fact, I can't remember many times when I could ever just have a drink. For years, I knew deep down that I had a serious drinking problem, but I kept trying to convince myself that I wasn't as bad as those people, you know, the true alcoholics. Well, I could call it what I wanted to, but the reality was right in front of me. So I needed to come to grips with all the signs that were becoming more and more obvious. In fact, I sat down one day and I wrote out a list of things that could, just possibly, maybe, give me an indication that my love affair had gone from romance to destruction. And here's just an abbreviated list of what I came up with. I might be a booze queen, wino, lush, or even the A word if I make it a point to buy alcohol at different grocery stores, gas stations, and wineries so I don't become a regular and risk being judged. I'm hiding drinks so my kids don't see me drinking. I literally can't go to any social event without drinking. I find myself feeling proud if I go one night without drinking, or that I definitely can control it if I can go two. I find myself compulsively thinking about when and what I'll be drinking. I miss my son's baseball game because I overindulged the night before. I constantly worry about my health and even dying, but I still don't quit. I often make plans to just drink on certain days, or only at social events, or only so many drinks, but it never seems to work. I watch Intervention to convince myself that I'm not that bad. I watch Intervention and can completely relate. I find myself feeling angry when I see alcohol being sold literally everywhere. The zoo, Skateland, the movie theater, youth lacrosse games, 5K races, mommy and me goat yoga at the local winery. But then I find myself getting anxious and disappointed when I go somewhere where it's not sold. I sometimes worry that I forgot to get rid of empty wine bottles placed in random places around my house. My daughter smells the liquid in a cup before she takes a drink. I drink because I feel overwhelmed, lonely, bored, unmotivated, controlled, guilty, ashamed, to calm my anxiety, to have connection. Because it's nice outside, because it's shitty outside. To be quiet, to be loud, to forget about how I feel, to forget about how I look. To be liked, to not care if I'm liked. To celebrate, to mourn, because wine tastes so good, because wine is good for you. To face the world, to hide from the world, to hide from myself. I got to a point where I may have had so many reasons that I wanted to continue to drink, but I had way more important ones for needing to stop. I successfully completed an intensive outpatient recovery program and gave up alcohol for 6 months from September 2019 to March 2020. Then COVID hit and all hell broke loose. I started drinking again pretty much nightly, which soon became drinking late afternoon and well into the evening. Mornings became a painful fog of regret, and the cycle of insanity started repeating itself all over again. My recovery journey has been full of ups and downs, but one thing that I've learned in recovery is that to stay sober, accountability is everything. And I stand here tonight on this stage in front of you and in front of the world to say that I have been alcohol-free for 182 days. Thank you. People often ask me what it was that happened when I finally decided to give up alcohol. My reply, which time? Sobriety doesn't know finality. Sobriety only knows two things: recovery and relapse. And every single day, I make the decision to work on my recovery. Because my worst days sober is still a million times better than a great night of drinking, which is never great anyways, the morning after. In fact, there are so many things that are better now that I'm not drinking. Things like waking up at 5 a.m. to run or make it to a 5:30 a.m. class at the gym. Yes, I'm that kind of crazy now. Remembering everything. Conversations from the night before, where I put things, Facebook posts I made, what I purchased on Amazon. I know my husband probably appreciates that one too. Feeling healthy, strong, and ready to face the day every morning I wake up without an overwhelming feeling of anxiety or alcohol-induced panic attacks. Showing up and being fully present. Owning my authenticity and feeling like I'm worthy. Being there for my 3 beautiful, amazing kids. Who deserve to have a sober mom every single day. Being a badass and having the energy, drive, and passion to do this show. A few months ago, I attended a social event that I go to every year, and I survived the night with 0 alcohol. When I got home, my 15-year-old son ran downstairs and said to me, "Before I have a conversation with you, how much did you drink tonight?" And it made me so happy to be able to honestly tell him, none. And as I started to try to convince him, because he'd heard that before, as I started to try to convince him that I was telling the truth, he stopped me and said, "Mom, I know you didn't. I can hear it in your voice." But even as I was heading out to this event, I started thinking to myself, well, maybe I'll have just 1 glass of wine, which then turned into, well, even 2 glasses would probably be fine. Typical thoughts for someone in recovery. But then I threw my mocktails in my purse and left. Typically, at an event like this, I would have shown up tipsy, headed to the bar right when I got there, and probably would have continued to drink several glasses of wine. It's also likely that I would have had more wine when I got home, passed out with my makeup still on and maybe even my dress, and woke up feeling like crap. Instead, I said no to alcohol and was actually present in every single moment. I woke up feeling amazing, and the best thing is that I remember every detail and conversation of the evening, but I'm not gonna lie, I did feel like a super awkward human being sitting there in my own skin, completely sober. I've worked on that quite a bit, gotten a little better at it, but it's still a work in progress. I wish that I could say that there's an ending to my story, but recovery has no ending. It's a never-ending journey. I took the elevator down, and now I'm taking the stairs back up. Thanks. And I know that I am not alone. I have the support of my family, so many amazing friends, and these 9 phenomenal women on this stage who said yes to going on this journey with me tonight. From the bottom of my heart, you truly all are so amazing. Okay, now I have some special words for each of them. Brandi, I can completely relate to learning how to pivot when life doesn't go as planned, and also just smiling to cover feelings of social awkwardness. You seriously light up a room with that smile, so I hope you never lose it. After all, smiles are contagious. Michelle, your path to recovery and your determination is truly an inspiration. You possess such courage, strength, humility, and joy. And do not get me started on your homemade peanut butter dips and muffins, because they are delicious. Heather, thank you for teaching me what nummies are. And also that all Indy races aren't NASCAR. I'm from Illinois, I didn't know that. Myra, I am so glad that you found your path to motherhood, even if it wasn't the most traditional route. And thank you for all of the encouragement and feedback that you've given me as I continue in my journey of perfecting the art of public speaking. Kelli, you truly did become the parent who advocates for children everywhere to be included. And I hope that all moms who hear your story are inspired to advocate like a mother because of you. Lisa, we are so glad that Brooklyn couldn't keep you and that you found your way here. Our community is so blessed to have your energy, enthusiasm, and passion for life. Cara, I have to say that I still laugh every time I hear your story. I don't know if I could have survived your day with Larry, but I seriously would be happy to weather any shitstorm with you. Becca, thank you for teaching us all how to have a little more gritty grace and showing us what it means to learn self-acceptance. And finally, Jennifer, your relationship with music is so healing. Thank you for showing us all how we can continue to make our own kind of music.
Nobody can tell ya there's only one song worth singing. They may try and sell ya, but it hangs them up to see someone like you. 'Cause you've gotta make your own kind of music, sing your own special song, make your own kind of music, even if nobody else sings along. You're gonna be knowing the loneliest kind of lonely. It may be tough going, but it do your things, the hardest thing to do. 'Cause you've gotta make your own kind of music, sing your own special song, make your own kind of music, even if nobody else sings along. So if you cannot take my hand, and if you must be going, we will understand. Oh, 'cause you've gotta make your own kind of music, sing your own special song, make your own kind of music, even if nobody else sings along. One more time. You gotta make your own kind of music,
and Jenette, if you can come out to the center, stand by this gorgeous Katie in yellow. Kevin, sorry you're not going to come up to the stage, but we love you too. There are 3 people who have worked with us women tirelessly. They have inspired us more than we probably inspired you tonight. They challenged us to tell our stories. They emboldened us to make it about us and to be proud of who we are. And we are so thankful and grateful for everything you did for us. Katie, Jenette, Kevin. So ladies and gentlemen, let's give them a round of applause. Thank you.